Okay, it's time for the New York Giants draft analysis, and with their first round, fourth overall pick, they selected Andrew Thomas, tackle out of Georgia. I gave this pick an A minus, simply because of the fact that it's been a need for the Giants for so long now. It really shortened Eli's career and really led to a pretty sad ending for him, as he took a beating his last few years. So I do think Thomas does have some work to do if he wants to fill that void. He needs to work on his footwork, especially, and his technique if he wants to be a consistent starter and really back up Daniel Jones very nicely. Make sure that he doesn't get blindside hit and fumbles. Fumbles and turns the ball over. So, you don't want those hits from the backside anyway. Knock him out, lose the ball, bad throws, forcing interceptions. So you want a staple there, and I think if Thomas wants to do that, he wants to become a solid starter. He needs to work on the footwork and the technique issues. But I do already think he comes in with nice recovery abilities and some unique techniques. But although those will help him, they're not. He's going to need more if he wants to stay and be a consistent starter in the NFL. So, like what he comes in with, has a little bit of work to do, and hopefully he gets where he needs to be. Second round, 36 overall, the New York Giants selected Xavier McKinney, safety out of Alabama. I gave this pick an A minus. McKinney was pretty good at Bama. His sophomore and junior years, which were his last two, he bypassed his senior year. So he's definitely a round one projection in this year's draft, and to get him in the second round was a nice pick and nice availability, I guess you could say. So Giants got lucky, and they cashed in by selecting him. And I definitely think he's a very well-equipped safety. He's got very good athleticism, very good field awareness, and I like the versatility of him to be able to play different parts of the field. So that's very nice. High IQ for football. So I think his coverage instincts are very well as well, which allow him to make plays on the ball. However, while he can help in the run and in the backfield, he does need to work on the matchups with the more physical wide receivers and make sure that he's not getting beat on deep balls, which happened a few times this last year. So I think he has the potential to be one of the more versatile players in the NFL in the secondary, and I hope that he can develop nicely and really be what New York needs back there and fill the need they've had in the secondary for a while. So nice pick for New York. Hopefully McKinney develops very nicely. Takes us to their third round, 99th overall pick, Matt Pert, tackle out of Connecticut. So they went tackle again. I can't blame them. I gave this pick a B minus because Pert has been criticized for not having enough play strength and not good enough hand techniques. So to me, that's not good. Potentially speaking, they are fixable problems. But he's going to have some work to do. So potentially, while he does have the ability to fix those weak spots, I would, you try and find guys with a little bit, okay, maybe they've got this, but they need to work on this. But I think, you're finding a guy who lacks athletically and agility-wise and stuff like that. Maybe they have the techniques, or maybe they're really good athletically, but they don't have the techniques. So you want to find, a happy medium. I think there's too much work to do with him. But you do have to like the effort going for the lineman. So not a horrible pick there. That takes us to their fourth round, 110th overall pick, Darnay Holmes, cornerback out of UCLA. Excuse me. Holmes, I gave this pick a C minus because he just didn't impress when he was at UCLA. He's very small and undersized at 5'10", 195, and he's really not the most athletically gifted guy in the field, and he has had trouble in man coverage. So he's not the most naturally instinctive person either, which has hurt him and really taken away from playmaking abilities and potential to make a big play. But overall, he does have some potential to be somewhat of a decent slot corner if he could fix some of the coverage mistakes and maybe, work on his knowledge of the game. That way he could really take, because his ball hawking ability, they aren't horrible. But I think his lack of instincts allow him to get beat and take away some of those potential big plays. So, he could be pretty decent, I think, if he hits some of those weak points. And it's not a terrible pick in the 4th round, and it is a need. So, not a bad pick, but I do think there's a lot of work to do, and I hope it'll work out, but we'll see what happens. So, for that reason, I had to give it a C. But you do like potentially what he may have to offer if they could get there. But they had no more 4th round picks. They moved on to round 5, 150th overall, when they picked Shane Lymanix, guard out of Oregon. I gave this pick a B-. Again, going offensive line, nothing wrong with that. But very intelligent player. You have to like that. Plays tough. And very disciplined, and he does his best work at the run blocking level. His pass protection is okay, not where it should be, which I think will kind of limit his potential and playing time, especially as a starter. But backup potential, and I think maybe over time, maybe it'll just be an average pass blocker, and it'll do the job. But definitely what he needs to work on is his pass blocking abilities and footwork. So if he could get that down, who knows, it could be a little bit better. But overall, as he comes in, you gotta like it. Good head on the shoulders, smart, plays tough. And again, the discipline to prevent the holdings on the run plays, very nice. Even on the pass plays, which they limit taking out the big ones, and especially when you have a guy like Saquon who could run for 70 yards, you don't want it to be called back with the holding. So it's a nice feature to have, especially as a backup if need be. So round 6, 183rd overall was their next available pick, in which they selected Cameron Brown, linebacker out of Penn State. My analysis on this guy is pretty quick. I gave it a C, the pick. Because to me, Brown doesn't really have the athletic traits, the frame, or the good football abilities, which I think will severely limit his playing abilities, especially down the road. Not the worst guy out there. I just don't see much potential with him. So I think it's a questionable pick. It is a need, so maybe he could develop. But I don't think it's the best pick in the world, and I don't think, potentially speaking, it's one of those guys where you're like, well, maybe. Or maybe there was something limiting his potential, or there's a few bright spots. So I didn't see it, but maybe New York saw something I didn't see, so I just gave it a C. Round 7, 218th overall, they picked Carter Coughlin, linebacker out of Minnesota. Now this one I gave a B-, because I think you got to like Coughlin's intelligence. He's very smart, sound. He's hardworking. Really just a max effort every player. So I think you'd like to see him add a little bit of weight. But what you gotta like is his 40 tackles for loss, 22.5 sacks, and 8 forced fumbles while at Minnesota, which are very hard to ignore. So overall, I like that. And, that to me seems like there's more potential in him, especially because he comes in with good football instincts and a good football IQ from the beginning. So overall, good pick there for 7th round. A lot to like, especially if he ends up being a backup, rotational, or maybe even a starter down the road for New York. So not a terrible pick, which leads us to they had 3 more 7th round picks, 4 overall, or 4 total. So this takes their second one, 7th round, 238th overall. T.J. Brunson, linebacker out of South Carolina. not a good one here. I gave this pick a D minus because although Brunson is a great leader, it's just the sad news is he's really just not a gifted athlete, and you wish it was the other way around. You wish that the people that just have that natural leadership ability would get those gifts. But in this case, it's unfortunate. He does have below average athletic traits, and I think that will really, I think it's noticeably already hindered his game. And you talk about the NFL level, it'll only hold him back further, which is why I don't think he has much potential moving forward. Up next, round 7th, 247th overall, my bad. They selected Chris Williamson, cornerback out of Minnesota. I gave this pick a C minus because Williamson he's an average football player. He's a little bit of a larger corner. So he's been used in more of a non-traditional role because of his size. And I think he'll come down, play kind of nickel almost. Kind of acting like a linebacker on some plays due to that size. So his coverage, a little shaky. You wish it was a little better, but could definitely help out in the run. And I do think he's very versatile. But I do think his average abilities can hold him back. But you want to see those improve. That way he could be an all-around corner. But I think there's a little bit too much work to do. I don't know if they'll quite get there. But round 7 is not terrible. But I still gave it a C minus because there's just a lot of work to do. And sometimes you just don't have time to develop that player. Especially this year, again, with the lack of the preseason and the mini camps. You kind of want those guys just a little bit of work, not this much work. So we'll see how that happens for New York. Their last pick in the draft, 7th round, 255th overall, selected Tay Crowder, linebacker out of Georgia. F. I gave it an F. I mean, Crowder, he's just not an NFL player. Nothing special when he was even at Georgia. He was a running back turned linebacker. He just lacks experience at the position. He hasn't played enough, and I think his techniques are just they're not where they need to be. It's just way too much work. I don't think New York will have the time to develop him. So while he's not a horrible athlete, I just don't think it's going to happen for him at linebacker. So that's why I gave it an F. There's too much to be done, and that's why I think it'll just be forgotten and it'll get cut down the road. So overall, I gave New York a C minus because I think they failed. Again, come draft day, they did not do well. They drafted a lot of questionable talents, a lot of guys with very limited potential or way too much work needed. They didn't really bring in any guys that are going to be a home run right away and really help that team and some of the younger players that are already on that team. So that didn't help, and I really think, they just failed to even, while they did address the needs, they didn't really address the needs because a lot of the guys they drafted, very questionable. So you wish they would have got a couple guys maybe with slightly more potential and maybe, got some more sure things in the earlier rounds. But due to the lack of them doing that, I had to give them a C minus for their overall drafting. So not what you're looking for with this young team, new coach, but it wasn't the worst thing in the world, but it definitely, I think it could have been better for them. So what can you say? So overall C minus for the Giants. But coming up next, America's team, Dallas Cowboys draft analysis. So stay tuned for Cowboy Nation's draft picks. Thank you.